How's it, everyone? Welcome to episode number 15 of the Marketing Fix Show. Before I'm going to introduce our guest today, I want to tell you that our show is sponsored by the Digital School of Marketing. These guys are accredited locally and internationally. And if you want to learn anything about digital marketing, the Digital School of Marketing.co.za is where you have to go. Now, they're a sponsor of the show, and we're giving away one course worth $11,500 every month for the next couple of months. So this month's winner will be announced on the 31st of August. So all you have to do is just subscribe to one of the channels, leave your email if you're on the site, and then you're going to stand a chance to win a digital marketing course. A survival skill is what you will gain, I believe. I believe it's the survival skill of the future, learning digital marketing. And that brings me to today's guest, because I would like to hear what he thinks about digital marketing skills as well. One of his skills in particularly is gaining new clients, B2B clients specifically, without having to spend money on advertising. That's basically what Wandile Shabangu did. We met about 2 years ago, but I'm not going to tell you too much about Wandile. He can do it himself. He will probably tell the story a little bit better. Wandile, thank you so much for coming through, dude. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to come drop some nuggets. I really do. Welcome, and I'm looking forward to the chat, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Awesome. So from my side, maybe just give the audience, for the one person that's watching this, who's probably my mom and dad, maybe just tell them, who you are and kind of like how we've met, and maybe, how you've become the outreach master, how you've become this person who can generate leads for, any B2B business, but particularly, agencies. And kind of like how that happened. And yeah, it would be great to maybe just do a bit of an origin story.
Okay, sure. So my name is Wandile, as you mentioned earlier on. And my journey really started, I would say, when I graduated from AFDA. So I actually have a film background, funny enough, because when you look at what I do right now, what I actually studied, is completely two different things. But I actually have a degree in film and motion picture. And what I majored in was producing. But at that point in time in my life, I was lost. I wasn't necessarily sure what I wanted to do in my life. So when I graduated, it was just sort of a thing of like, what am I going to do? I don't necessarily know what I'm passionate about. But when I actually think about things in hindsight, before I actually went to AFDA, I studied, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a degree of some sort, so like a certificate at UJ, because at that time point in my life I wasn't necessarily sure what I wanted to do. So my parents were like, look, just go do marketing and advertising and try it out. So I was like, okay, it's interesting, I'll go do what I have to do. So I went to UJ for that. It was a year course. To be honest, I was young. I wasn't necessarily sure if I wanted to do that. So yeah, after I graduated from AFDA, my dad was like to me, look, dude, since you're still confused about what you want to do, why don't you just work for the family business? So like, sure. And he's like, okay, cool. You'll be the marketing manager and you'll just, help us get new business. So I worked for them for around 2 years. To be honest, man, again, at that point in my life, I was trying to figure myself out. I think for majority of my time, especially when I think about things in hindsight, I was very lost. When I think about it now, I think I was always just trying to prove myself, trying to prove to who I am and essentially what I can give value to the world with. So yeah, I was at the company for around 2 years, and then I'm bored, not necessarily knowing what I'm doing. So I actually go onto YouTube, and typically I'll go on YouTube just to watch like memes, funny videos, etc., etc. The one day I saw this video, I'll never forget his name. His name is Ryan Hildreth. And he was speaking about how he's making money with his social media business. And I was like, whoa, okay, what's this? This is interesting. So I literally started watching all his videos, and I was so obsessed. And I was like, you know what? I want to take the plunge and just do what I can to start my own social media business. So yeah, I took that leap of faith. And then, at that point in my time, my best friend, who's my ex-business partner, he was actually in the industry at that time. He was doing a lot of lead generation for certain companies. So yeah, we started that journey. We started the company by the grace of God, man. Literally, I left the company at July 2017.
How did that conversation go with your dad? Dad, I'm leaving to start my own business. I hope you're happy with that.
I mean, the thing is, I realized that, when I was working with my parents, and again, I just realized that the family business wasn't working out for me because my mom is the kind of person who is, she likes things done her way, So me coming into the business, trying to introduce new methods, it was just quite arduous and difficult for us to like find a common ground. So it was just always difficult for us to actually, work together. So I was just frustrated because, we couldn't work together. And, the business, this is more in the industrial side. So we're in Germiston, there's trucks, it's dust, it's just, it's not me. So I was just like, I need to try and find my own direction, my own identity. So my dad has always been supportive of everything that I've done. So he was like to me, look, if this is what you want to go and do it. And, luckily, literally I left the company in July 2017. And then in August, we just moved into new offices in Bryanston. So just to give you a little bit of context, we first started off this agency. It's an agency called Offsite Digital. And essentially how we actually came up with the name, kudos to my business partner. So it's a data insight driven agency. And essentially, in order for us to gather insight to provide strategies for clients, we have to go offsite. So that's how the name actually came about. So, the first I would say idea that we had was to actually facilitate an event, because there was an event that was happening in Mozambique. One of our favorite artists, his name is Future, he was performing in Mozambique. So my business partner had a lot of affiliates and he was mainly interested in beer brands. So he was like to me, look, dude, let's actually facilitate an event or facilitate a road trip where we can actually get South African people who love Future into Mozambique. So I was like, okay, sure, let's do that. So we did that. And we sent out a couple of emails to Castle Light and they were like, sure, this is great. Just so long as you guys can facilitate the actual road trip.
You make it sound so easy. We sent a couple of mails to Castle Light and they were like, love the idea.
Well, look, I'll give props to my business partner. At that point in time, he already had the context. He knew who to speak to. And at that point in time, he knew how to send the presentations, how to send the emails. So I think, he helped me a lot get started with cold email and outreach. But at the time, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. So yeah, that went well until Castle Light was like, sorry, if you're going to be facilitating this road trip and if you guys are going to be getting the accommodation for the people who are interested in watching Future in Mozambique, if anything happens to those people, we're going to be liable. So we're going to cut this deal. So now we're at a point where we had already marketed the event. I had to call in favors for my friends who are hip hop artists. And now it's a situation where it's like, this is going to make us look bad. This is literally my first 2 weeks of starting this company and things aren't going well. But, something amazing happened. The guy who actually works very closely with Castle Light, big shout out to Glenn. His name is Glenn. He owns a company called Glenn 21. It's an events company and they basically help Castle Light. If I'm correct, they basically partner up with Castle Light to actually create these huge events happening at the Dome. They've done Migos, they've done so many hip hop artists, especially at Castle Light. So he actually reached out to us and he was like, hey guys, I see what you guys are doing. I'm not sure if I'm going to intrude anything, but I want us to have a quick chat just to learn what you guys are about. So we did our research, like, oh, this guy is successful. He's really good. And he was like, okay, cool. I'm actually flying off to LA next week. So I want you guys to pitch me in the car on my way to the actual airport.
Like in the movies almost.
Yeah. So, at that point in time, I'm like, okay, crap, I need to actually go ask my mom for a car. Because my car, I just didn't feel like it was going to give a good impression. So I was like, you know what, let me first ask my mom. I got a car, picked up my business partner, and then we went. I'll never forget the day. We went, I think it was at 4 West Crossing. He came, he had his bags. We put the car in the bags. The first time we're meeting him, put all the bags in the car because we're like, this guy is important, so we got to impress him. So then I was driving, and then my business partner was in the back, and he had the laptop, and he was pitching him. Because I think, my business partner's forte was just presenting. And I think I got a lot of my inspiration from him. So he was presenting everything about what we do and, just experience that we have. And bear in mind, this is literally, this company is just like 2 weeks old, you know, and we're already in a car pitching this guy about our company. So, he believed in us. I'll always be grateful for Glenn for that. He believed in us and he's like, okay, listen, when I come back from LA, I want you guys to actually pitch me with me and my business partners in my office, and then we'll see where we take it from there. So 2 weeks later passed, we pitched, and he was like, cool. So I want to partner up with you guys. I'm going to get you guys an office. I'll take care of you guys just so long as you guys actually handle the clients that I give you. So the agreement was, we will then pitch and work with his specific clients, and then he will just facilitate everything financially. So now you need to understand, I'm just from Germiston, the dusty side of it, industrial side. And literally the following month, I'm now in Bryanston. These beautiful offices. It's just completely different. And our very first campaign that we did was the Migos. The Migos came from,
Nice.
I think it was October. Yeah, October. That was our very first client. Our very first campaign. And you need to understand, like for me, I knew nothing about marketing. I knew absolutely nothing. But now I'm in boardrooms with MTV Base and all these companies, and we're just pitching the ad campaign. Now, obviously, I didn't have much experience. My business partner did.
Yeah.
So more than anything, I was just learning from him on the fly. Unfortunately, that partnership didn't go well. After 3 months, he ended the partnership. And I think at that point in time, for me and my business partner, because we are a package deal, something happened. And I think when I think about things in hindsight right now, we just got a little bit too cocky. Yeah. And I understand because,
it's a lot too quick.
Yeah, too quickly, And that just went back to square one. And at that point in time, I was comfortable. I had a salary, even before the partnership. I had a salary. I was paying for my daughter's bills, etc. Now I'm like, I have nothing. And I can't necessarily go back to that, So now I have to try to figure things out myself. So that's when I actually created my very first outreach campaign. It was to dentists. I'll never forget. It was around to dentists. I think I sent around 200 emails, and one replied. I was like, never forget his name, Dr. Dave. He's based in Johannesburg Road, Lyndhurst, and he's like, yeah, okay, I like your attitude. Let's sit and let's chat. And when I think about it, that specific email that I did, like 2 paragraphs long, and I was cocky. I was arrogant. I'm like, yeah, we can do this for you. We worked with Migos.
I'm gonna help you make so much money.
I did everything wrong that most companies do now.
Yeah.
So when I think about that, and up until now, the journey has really been humbling. A lot has happened, but I have specifically focused on just becoming better every single day. And now I'm here today.
That's crazy, man. And I think for those who don't know, maybe let's just talk about what outreach really is. And I think you've mentioned that you've did an outreach to these dentists. One of them replied. That's kind of like where the outreach journey started.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just put a little bit of a definition on outreach and what it really is, because this is quite a particular skill. And when I talk about outreach, it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To me, it means that you are turning water into wine. That's what it means to me.
It's a sexy way of putting it.
Thank you. I actually just came up with that. But literally, you're turning something magical from nothing. Like, you're not spending money. You're not taking real risk. It's a nice way of really starting a business is by doing outreach first, and that's how we grew our business. And we'll talk about a little bit about that. But that's literally how I started our agency. I went into my low-hanging fruit, which was people I knew when I left my previous company, and that added up to 2 clients. Only 2 clients. How am I going to grow from just 2 clients? It's not enough clients to really give you referrals. So the other 4, 5, 6 clients after that was purely outreach. And funny enough, out of the 6 people who signed on, I think 4 of them are still our clients. So it's definitely a strategy that works. In my mind, you're generating business by not really taking any risk, which is why I'm saying it's almost like turning water into wine, because you're doing something really awesome without anything really. And in your perspective, what really is an outreach campaign, and how can we tie that into today's podcast, which is literally how people can maybe do their own outreach to generate leads for their own businesses? And is it for any type of business, just B2B? What works best? I mean, let's start with maybe what an outreach is, and we can dive into the rest.
Okay, sure. So outreach, the way that you put it, that was nice, right, in a short way. But to formally put it, outreach is essentially just the art of initiating and engaging conversation with your prospective clients that you obviously want to do business with the idea of pitching the meeting and not the deal.
So it's basically just saying, hey guys, we can help you with X. Are you interested in learning more a little bit about it? And that could potentially then lead to a meeting. So it's basically just generating interest.
Yes, generating interest in the beginning. So, look, I hear this all the time, and it might be cliche for some, but it's sort of like when it comes to relationships, right? You don't want to propose marriage first date. So it's the same thing with business. You don't want to pitch the deal on the actual first initial contact. You first want to gauge and see if there's interest. And at the same time, is your message actually congruent with what's actually happening in their business, right? With the problems that they're currently having. So are your services or are your products actually congruent in solving whatever issues that they're having right now in the moment. So Robert Collier speaks about you want to engage in the conversation that's already happening in your prospect's mind. So, for example, if someone had to reach out to me and tell me, "Hey, look, I can help you generate more business," I mean that's generic. And for me, because I've been doing this for quite some time, I already know that you haven't put in enough effort to figure out who I am and what I'm doing. However, what's happening in my mind right now is I'm trying to get consistent demos on just a consistent basis, right? That's predictable. So if someone had to reach out to me and like, "Hey, listen, I know that you're an agency owner and I know that you're having trouble trying to find predictable and consistent demos on a consistent basis. This is what I do and these are my clients. Look, I can help you. However, let's chat and see if you have a good fit." That's perfect. I'm literally going to be like, "What? Okay." And I mean, if you had to charge me 100,000 Rand a month, I'll find a way to do it because he's already engaging with the conversation that's already happening in my mind. Most people aren't doing that. Most people just have this generic assumption that, okay, I think this is what business owners or I think this is what my prospects are going through. But the problem is they haven't done their research. They haven't engaged with their prospects. They haven't, spoken to the prospects. They haven't gone to the markets trying to figure out exactly what is happening and what problems are they currently having. And I think that's where the disconnect happens with most business owners, especially those that are trying to get more clients, is that the generic approach doesn't necessarily work. You always want to go deep into it and understand who they are and their languages.
Yeah, the one thing I want to touch on there is that you mentioned the word demo. That's obviously, for those who don't know, a demonstration of the services or the offering that you can obviously propose or pitch to this company, the problem that you can solve. And then, from what I'm hearing you say is like most people just take a blanket approach. It's like,
100%.
"Hey, we can help you generate more business because you're a business and you need business, so we can help you." And I mean, even though that's a pain point, it's a lot more granular than that. The issues that they are experiencing is a lot more granular. The lack of business or the hurdle that's preventing them from scaling is only top level. That's the end result, but it's not the origin of the problem.
Yes,
it's not the actual problem itself. There's other. That's only like a symptom of the sickness, if that makes sense. And what you're saying is like when it comes to outreach and when you're really trying to solve a business owner's problem, it's about really diagnosing the actual problem and then coming up with a cure for that. To the point where they go, "Oh, well, that makes sense and that is going to help us generate more business."
Yes.
What you're solving will help us generate more business, and that's exactly it. So when it comes to outreach, is this just something anybody can start doing? For those listening, we obviously have a young audience as well. Being cognizant to the fact that there's a lot of 19, 20-year-olds listening, a lot of people like you and myself who ended up going to college or I didn't. I was there for like 3 months and I was like, this is not for me. Not that I want to advocate that. I mean, I ended up playing rugby because I thought I was going to be a Springbok. You obviously did your thing and then you realize, well, that's not what you wanted to do. And I think there's a lot of people like that listening. And then obviously a lot of people who are going through a very difficult time because we are in the middle of a pandemic. And a lot of businesses are closing. A lot of people are left on the road. A lot of people are literally, out on their asses at the moment. And I think people are quite desperate to find business in general. So being cognizant of that, is this something that anybody can go and do? Who's this specifically for? Who would you say today should look at doing outreach? And who do you think it's going to benefit today, basically?
Look, to be honest, if you're a business owner and you just providing a service or even just products in general, it's for you. Because at the end of the day, when I actually think about things in hindsight, and when I was just speaking about my journey earlier on, I literally had a degree in film and motion picture. I knew nothing about outreach, and the fact that I reached out to dentists, again, I knew nothing about their problems. I knew nothing about how I could actually help them. And the fact that I got an appointment, that just shows that anyone can do it, okay? And again, I think also people just need to be super cognizant of their market. So in the business space, well, when I would say the marketing space, this is what I've heard all the time. And I guess it only started making sense this year when I really started to dial into it. They always say that the riches are in the niches. So often, too many times, certain business owners, are offering this service and this service and this service and this service. Then they're speaking to this particular business and that particular service. So it's all muddled up. And unfortunately, again, it goes back to understanding your business owner's problems or the business owner's problems, right? So ideally, what you want to be focusing on specifically is just honing in on what service are you providing, and which service of that is going to help the business owner. So really just to answer your question, anyone can do it. If you're providing a service, it definitely will work for you.
So mainly what I'm hearing you say, mainly business to business companies at the moment.
Yeah, business to business. I mean, even with B2C, you can do that as well. But the problem is that's only going to specifically work with regards to if you trying to target consumers on social media. There is certain tactics that do work. I've taken a couple of courses just trying to see at the end of the day what works, what doesn't work. Because for me, I always just try to look at the holistic approach. Even though, yes, I do speak with B2B business owners, I also want to look at what's happening in the B2C side. Because at the end of the day, it's more or less we're speaking to people at the end of the day. So for me, I just like to look at the semantics, what's different when brands are speaking to B2C and what's different when business owners are speaking to other business owners.
Yeah.
So ideally, B2B, B2C, you're speaking to people and it just works for anyone if you have the right solution that you're providing to the business owner.
How I think about it is that it's a direct approach because you're reaching out to an individual, like you just said.
Yeah.
So for B2B, it works well because one individual can generate you a lot of business in the
100%.
B2B space. Like one person needs to say yes, and you're sitting with a really decent retainer monthly, where if you're in the B2C space, one person will equivalent to one sale of a product worth $500. Now you need to go find the next person. So essentially, from what I'm hearing you say is B2B and B2C can do this, but it's just more beneficial for B2B purely because of the fact that it's about the biggest impact.
100%.
I'm reaching one person who can have a massive impact on my business. And that massive impact is, a 20K retainer or whatever it may be, versus reaching out to one consumer that's only going to give me $500 or 1,000 Rand max for all the products. And then I have to go and find the next person. And then I hope he comes back to buy, those products again next month. So it sounds like it is obviously possible for B2C, but it's quite difficult to scale that because, again, it's all manually done. And obviously there are software to automate this that we can chat about. But yeah. Right. So when it comes to different channels, what people can use in order to start their outreaches, if someone had to go and say, cool, I want to start my own outreach. I want to turn water into wine. I want to go ahead and really generate business from nothing really, without really the cost implication or taking on that risk of investments. What would be the best place to start, would you say? Like where did you start? From what I understand, you started with email, but where do you suggest people start?
Well, I would suggest first figure out where your market is hanging out, right? If your market is hanging out on LinkedIn, go over there, right? If your market is on Facebook, go over there. But as I mentioned earlier on, you're speaking to people and, I don't like to categorize people as business owners because, they are still people in the day. They've got Facebook profiles, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn as well. So typically what I would just advocate and tell people to do is find out where your market is hanging out. And then, formulate a strategy from there. But ideally, I would start off with cold email or just emailing just in general, because most business owners, I would like to assume that most business owners check their emails, and that's the first point of reference where when they're first starting off the day, they check out their emails. So I would suggest starting off with emails. Again, it's free. You don't have to pay anything at all. In fact, all of these channels are free. You're not paying for anything unless you don't have Wi-Fi, etc. But at the end of the day, it is free. And again, it's risk-free. So at the end of the day, you can test out multiple strategies, campaigns, or just messages to see what works for your market. And then once you find something that works, then you can scale that and then take it to the top.
So considering email, let's talk a little bit about that. So I do believe and I do hope that most business owners obviously use their email, probably not as frequently as us marketers would want, but at the end of the day, the most of them do. And I think there was a stat showing that I think 70% of emails are from business owners basically. So I think if you have to look at every single email that's registered, I think like 60% of them are in the name of businesses. Or some form of business or whatever it is. I don't hold me to that. It might have been, I might have interpreted it wrong, but it came down to the fact that email marketing to businesses just purely works, and it's quite an attractive channel at the moment. That's the main takeaway there, basically. And looking at email and starting with email, give us the juices. Like if you had to now start with an email outreach campaign, where do you start? What do you have to consider? How do you go about it?
Okay, so First things first, what I would first start off, if I literally starting off from the beginning, I would start creating burner accounts. So essentially what a burner account is...
Sounds dodgy.
It does, right? So essentially what a burner account is, you're just creating an alias for your email. So what you don't want to do, and I really do urge all business owners, if you're listening to this right now, do not send outreach emails with your primary email address.
Why?
And the reason, okay, so this is what happens, all right? When you first starting off with something, with any skill, right, you're going to suck. I think that's just a given. So when you're going to first start off with your email campaigns,
correct.
Most of us just assume that we know what we're doing, and we're like, okay, I'm going to blast off some emails to, a list. So what most of them would do is that they'll buy a list, and then they'll just blast off that email. And what happens is that you're basically sending flags to your email provider that you are spamming people. And look, at the end of the day, once your domain, that your main email account is registered as spam, was flagged as spam, it's incredibly arduous for you to get it back. And the reason why is because, most of your emails now are just going to register under spam. And most of your normal emails that you'd be sending to other business owners, to clients, etc., they're not going to receive your emails, right? It's all going to be under spam. So ideally, that's where the burner account comes in, because then even if you burn that account and it gets flagged as spam, it was really just a burner account, and you can just create another one and continue that process until you actually find a message that works for you. And then, only then afterwards, can you use your primary email address once you have the right message and once you've actually mastered what you're looking for doing.
Well, let me tell you a story. I was the person who used my primary business account when I started V8 Media. And guess what? We got flagged as spam because I sent like 1,000 emails in a day. And like you were saying earlier, like I made all the mistakes. It was like a paragraph this long. It had like 10 links in it, like to the about page and to my pricing page and to my articles and blogs. And because I thought everybody will be romantic enough and, they would understand where my goodwill is coming from. And that didn't happen. Everybody just flagged it as spam. And funny story, it took us like almost a year to recover from that, purely because of the fact that the clients that we actually had communicated with us. But when we communicated back, they didn't receive it because our comms ended up in their spam buckets. And I would get an email like a week later going like, is this done? Or we could get a phone call, urgent phone call, going, hey, Yandre, like, we haven't heard from you. Like, are you guys on this? Like, it's causing issues, troubles. And we, as an agency, we pride ourselves in our communication. Like, we have like a 24-hour policy where you're going to hear back from us at all times. And, that was like very confusing for me because I'm like, we're so proud in how we communicate, but then we have all these red flags and clients, wanting to leave because we don't communicate well. And then I realized, well, it was my fault. And it was purely because of my ignorance. I went out and just marketed to all these people using a primary email address. So I can definitely vouch that that is probably not the best way to go about it. So very valuable tip there. I appreciate that. All right, next up, after that, if you are using a burner account, what's next?
So once you actually have your burner account, so what I typically like to do is I like to first warm up my emails, and I think that's very important. So essentially how I warm up my emails is I have this process called receive, send, and repeat. So what that basically means is I will go onto BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed is just it's a website.
I want to stop you there quickly. Why do you need to warm up your emails?
So you need to warm up your emails so that you don't fall under spam, right?
Okay.
So it's just super important because what you're really doing here is that when you're actually creating a new email, your new email account or your domain is very sensitive to the actual email provider because, again, look, a lot of people have been sending emails and spamming people. So what the provider just wants to do is to make sure that, are you a real person? Are you not trying to spam other people? Are you actually legit? And are you actually going to be using this email address for what you actually what it might be?
Are you going to be using it legitimately?
Yes, legitimately. So essentially, that's one of the reasons why you actually have to warm up your emails because of that. So how I would then warm up the emails is very simple. Well, not really simple for the person who's starting, but essentially how I first started off is I go into BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed is really just an aggregation of content. So I got that from a mentor of mine. So what you actually do is you go into BuzzFeed. There's a section where you go into newsletters, and what essentially it does is that it sends you just multiple newsletters every single day onto your email. So what's that doing is that it's actually giving you emails. right? So it's going to be sending you emails every single day. So what's that going to do is that's going to notify your email provider that you are receiving emails. But that's not just enough. Like, you have to start sending emails as well. Then what I will do is I'll create multiple burner accounts. I mean, oh gosh, I think I have like over 200 burner accounts. So I bought 100, but the rest I had to create myself with multiple SIM cards. Anyway, so what I would then do is I would then send myself emails across to my burner accounts. So again, receive, send, repeat. That's all I do.
Okay.
So at least now I know BuzzFeed is sending me multiple newsletters every single day into my inbox. So that's obviously telling my email provider that I'm receiving emails, from an outside source. And then I'm also literally sending myself other emails with my burner accounts, just having just random conversations. And the purpose here is really just to warm up my email domain, just so that once I start sending my outreach emails, it's not necessarily going to be flagged as spam, because then my domain and my email partner will then be able to realize, okay, no, this is actually someone who's legit. They're using it for legitimate reasons.
Okay, yeah, and I think the reason, what I've heard you say now, and I want to actually just clarify something, because you mentioned the word abort burner accounts, even though Gmail is free. So I think I just want to clarify, the reason you bought those accounts is because Gmail only allows, a certain amount of emails for each contact number. And when you say you bought burner accounts, you mean you bought SIM cards so that you can register more email accounts on every number. Is that correct?
Yes, okay. Man. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's really been a journey. So, yes. So the thing with Google is that they can only allow, I think it's around 7 to 8 emails per one number. So the fact that I've got over like 100 just that I've created myself is because what I did was I actually bought SIM cards, and then I would create about 8 Gmail accounts. But now it's very tricky, because now I had to create an Excel sheet with all of these Gmail, and then keep track of everything, passwords, etc. Right? So, I mean, look, if you really want to build your business, then I would suggest that you go that length. And again, at that point in time, I really didn't have any money. I was broke, and I mean, look, if you don't have money, you have time.
That's true.
So I had all the time, and I had all the time to research and figure out what I had to do. So that's essentially what I did, and that's essentially how I actually got to that journey.
Awesome, man. I love it. I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way. So from my side, get an alias. Make sure that you warm it up using BuzzFeed and subscribing to any newsletter, I suppose, because all you want is emails coming into
on a consistent basis,
into your email provider on a consistent basis, and then obviously you can reply to those mails and just say thank you, whatever it may be. After warming it up, I think let's talk about more of like, if you actually start sending the mail, like what does someone need to be cognizant of when they are starting to do an outreach to a particular entity. So for example, you approached dentists. What you did when you started versus what you would do today, maybe give us an indication. You've now have an alias account, you've done a bit of warm up. The mistakes that you've made, how would you correct them if you had to start today, if you were selling services to dentists?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. So first things first, subject line, because that's essentially what's going to grab your prospect's attention. So I would first work on my subject line, and just a quick tip over here, for anyone who's looking at doing this, you always want to create a subject line that's going to spark curiosity. So an easy one would be question about X, or just question, right? Now, obviously in my niche and the people that I work with, just using question now, because, it's very competitive, in the space that I work in. A lot of the clients that I work with, the minute you just have a subject line, which is question, because they've been receiving it so many times, they'll cuss you out and literally cuss you out. So you have to be creative.
Really? So they would tell you just to F off?
Yeah, because there's so many other people who are getting this advice from these gurus saying, just use question. Question works very well. So it's been oversaturated more than anything. But what works very well, and I think just using the curiosity approach works very well. So question about X, and what I mean by about X, about their business. You always want to shift the perspective as if you are a client or a customer asking a question, because that really does bring their walls of resistance down, because they don't necessarily know who you are, and what they're looking at it as is, okay, this maybe could be a potential client, it could be a potential customer, and that's what gets them to open. The whole purpose of the subject line is to get them to open, because if you cannot get them to open the email address, then you're screwed. So it's very, very, very important for you to first focus on the subject line. Then the next thing that I would focus on is your message. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I cannot give you guys tips on how to actually focus on your message because, I mean, everyone is working in a different niche. Everyone's working with a different business. So that's where you need to actually go and do your research. But I would say do not write paragraphs. Don't write paragraphs. Don't be arrogant. Don't speak about yourself. You are just trying to evoke a response. That's essentially what you want to first do. First, create an email, first email to evoke a response. So that's what I typically do. I have a two-touch email where I first send an email just to get a response. Okay. And then once they respond, then I actually pitch them. So essentially the strategy here is that I'm evoking a response because I'm trying to lure you in, right? That email, the first email is the bait email. And then the second email is when I actually try to hook you in. So if I've had to, correct myself from, when I first started off, is literally shorten your email to literally 1 or 2 lines. Okay. Create an enticing subject line that's going to evoke curiosity. And lastly, which is very important, do not include your signature. No signature, no links to whatever you have. Just create a SFIP, which is basically sent from my iPhone. Now, if you don't have an iPhone, just put it in, regardless. Just put in your signature, sent from my iPhone. That is going to be a signature. Don't add in your name, don't add in your number, nothing. Just put in sent from my iPhone. And the reason why that works very well is because it looks genuine. It looks like, okay, this is actually someone who reached out to me from their phone. Okay, and this seems innocuous. Like, okay, wow, okay, this is someone who's interested. Okay, and then that's what gets them to respond.
I need to tell you there, like the send from my iPhone changed my life. So you mentioned it to me once. The only person who mentioned it before you was, well, it didn't mention it. I picked it up. It was Grant Cardone's sales team, and I'm always interested to find out what everybody else is doing. So I subscribe to all these funnels and newsletters and lead magnets to understand the follow-up process because we are a performance marketing agency, and one thing that helps us with our performance is the follow-up to the interest. So if someone has said that they're interested in learning more about the business, on the back of the paid media campaign that got them to the site, we advocate that you don't just leave it, you need to follow up. And if you can have a system that automatically follows up on behalf of your sales team, that's even better. And you're increasing your odds of actually getting that customer, and you're lowering your cost per acquisition. So seeing it on Grant Cardone's sales team, and then you mentioned, I was like, I need to try this, man. And for the follow-up emails, so a lead would come in for a client, we're driving the traffic to the site, they would come in, they would get a generic email just saying, thank you so much, would you like to book a call? And then we use the send with iPhone in the second email. And that actually looks like you're just following up on the first one. And psychologically, it's so much easier to follow up on your phone on a quick reply versus actually typing out a whole pitch or proposal on an iPhone. So for us, we're using it on the follow-up, and it's working so well because it just shows you, and you almost feel like this guy was quickly in the car. He was like, oh shit, I remembered this client. Let me quickly send him in my car, in the taxi, or while I'm waiting in line at the bank. That's kind of like the image that you're creating on a subconscious level when you put sent with iPhone on there from a follow-up perspective, and that's worked extremely well for us. So I love it, man. Cool. So send from iPhone. Sorry, I'm just gonna redo that. Cool. So you mentioned no paragraphs, keep it short and sweet, create curiosity. And how I'm seeing this play out is like there's all these little barriers that you have to break down one by one. And the first barrier is the spam folder. So the first 100%. Barrier is, okay, you need to do something to overcome the spam folder. The second barrier is now you need to evoke a response from the actual job title, the actual job title, the actual decision maker that you're trying to target. And you're not going to do that if you don't get an open on the email. So the second barrier is getting that open to getting that person to actually go, hey, I want to open this mail. And then the third barrier is like, hey, I actually want to reply to this mail. So there's like all these little micro barriers that obviously someone needs to consider when they actually start their own outreach campaign. So from an email perspective, the last thing I want to ask before we move on to a couple of other channels is, how does someone go about finding these mails that they need to mail? So for example, if you were looking for dentists, how did you get that information? Because it's easy to sit here and say, guys, you need to do email marketing. You need to do cold email outreach, and here's the strategy. But where are they actually going to get that information? Where are they going to get the emails? Is there a place where they can get it? Or what was your strategy in order to just find dentists' emails or addresses? What did you do?
One word: Google. Literally.
Okay.
So just to give you a little bit more detail towards that. So I just went onto Google and I typed in dentist in Santon, and then all the websites started aggregating, and I literally just went into it one by one, finding the email address, copy paste. Now, when I think about things in hindsight, that was really a long and strenuous task. So what I would do now, okay, so I'll give you advice for someone who doesn't have money and then someone who's got money. So someone who doesn't have money, again, if you don't have money, you've got time. So I would suggest, look, there's multiple ways in how we can do it. So you can go into Google and manually just source out the emails from each and every single website. What I would also do is I'd actually go onto Google Maps. And then what's that going to do is that it's actually going to get you all the dentists in the nearby area. And I noticed that most of the dentists that you want to actually reach out to are the dentists that actually took the time to set up their own Google, business profile, because that's obviously someone who is actually focused and more or less congruent with regards to, I want to actually get my name out there. And it's much easier to sell to someone like that than someone who's just going to be on the yellow pages.
So true, man. You've hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. So I would do that. If I don't have money, go into Google. Another place you can also go is Facebook. So again, you also just want to figure out where's your market hanging out. So dentists, if you go onto Facebook and you just type in dentist groups on Facebook, just click that on the group section, and then you'll find all your prospects, right? Gathering up in all these groups. I mean, with marketing, for example, how many marketing groups are there on Facebook?
Yeah.
Right? So many, right? Because we want to share our opinions. We want to, also have conversations with like-minded people. So your prospects are also doing the exact same thing. It might not be on Facebook, could be on LinkedIn as well, could be on Instagram as well, right? I've seen multiple accounts, especially in my market, right? In my market, there's a couple of Instagram accounts where we actually have, meme or funny, real estate agent Instagram accounts. So a lot of real estate agents will actually follow that account and they'll comment on it. So that's really just one of the easiest ways how you can get the email addresses. Some of them are the long process, some of them isn't. And then when it comes to the paid way, I would say D7 Lead Finder. So D7 Lead Finder is a software that literally just scrapes all the emails from the internet. And I think it's around the cheapest plan. I think it's around $19.99.
Okay.
And the nice thing about it is that you can literally scrape around, I think, 5,000 to 10,000 emails per day.
Sure.
And again, if your business is not limited to one specific geographic location, you can target clients in America, in the UK, in Australia, anywhere, right? Worldwide. So ideally, if you are looking to get emails, I would say go to D7 Lead Finder. Again, I mean, look, you can also go into Google and find out which other email providers actually do have lists. The only thing about that is that some of their lists are not actually verified, so you have to verify those email addresses.
Oh, yeah.
Because the last thing that you want to do is send emails and then those emails bounce. That's going to hurt your domain. It's going to flag your domain. It's really going to hurt your account. So you ideally want to just verify those sources and how you get those emails. Another place, if you've got a little bit of money, is going to Fiverr or freelancer.com. And essentially what that is, it's just really just a website where you have all these freelancers that are offering their services. So with Fiverr, that's where I actually got some of my email addresses. And it's for cheap. I think around, how much did I get mine? I think I got around for around $19.99. And I got around 500,000 real estate emails addresses.
Wow.
So again, you can get a lot. It's just dependent on, the sources that you get it from. Yeah. If you've got money, you can leverage that. If you don't have money, you really have to then just focus on putting in the time, putting in the work, and just getting all the email addresses from websites or, just particular places like groups on Facebook where people are actually hanging out from there and just getting their details from the actual Facebook pages.
100%, man. And thank you so much for dropping those nuggets, because I just wanted to tie that up before we move on to the next channel, because I think that was like the missing piece. It's nice to know what to do, but where do you actually get the bait from? Where do you actually get those emails in order to utilize the strategy? So thank you for that. And I think what it comes down to is like, you just need to look for them. Like whatever, like there's ways. Go onto Fiverr, go onto Google, go into look for other software tools. Like D7 is a good one. Thank you for that. And I think another one is called Lead Carrot.
Yes.
So I think you actually mentioned Lead Carrot, and I had a look at it. Really, really cool. So there's so many tools out there. You just need to go and look for it. Like it's not going to happen by itself. And yeah, if you want to grow your business, like you say, you've got time or you've got money. It's either one of the two. All right, moving on to the next channel. I think I want to touch on LinkedIn purely because this is a B2B outreach, kind of like a show or an episode specifically around B2B businesses and generating leads for these businesses. We've talked about email. LinkedIn is obviously a great B2B platform.
100%.
So if we can touch on that before we move on to anything else. So on LinkedIn, we've talked about email now, but on LinkedIn, I mean, it's a social network, but I think not everybody understands their capabilities. Like, it's almost like the brain, right? A lot of people only use like 2% of the brain's real capacity or power. I mean, there's myths around that, but I don't think everybody uses the actual brain's full capacity. I think we can all safely say that. And I feel LinkedIn is exactly the same thing. Like, LinkedIn is around and people are just tapping into like the 1% of LinkedIn's capacity. And that's like just posting stuff and connecting with people. There's so much more that you can do. So maybe talking about LinkedIn, what would be the strategy on LinkedIn and how would you go about doing outreach on the platform?
So the strategy around LinkedIn, more than anything, I would say, is creating the relationship with your prospect. Look, there's multiple ways in how you can do that, but again, look, it's entirely dependent, right? I've seen most people go the fast route, which is actually just sending direct messages and just pitching them immediately on the first message. And that doesn't work well. And how I know that, just go onto LinkedIn, type in the search section, cold message, right? Just type that onto cold message and then click on content. And then you'll see a whole lot of people posting content on how they hate people reaching out to them in the first initial message. What happened to creating relationships? What happened to this? What happened to that? So I first did that initially to first gauge and look at the market and see, what are people actually responding to? What are people not responding to? So when I first did my research, I would literally look at all the comments, what people are commenting about, what people are saying. And just what I got from the gist of that, a lot of people want to first create that initial conversation, have that relationship with you first, and then you can pitch them. Right? So what I would actually do on LinkedIn, or the best way or the best approach for LinkedIn more than anything, is creating a relationship. Now, I have heard this multiple times when I listen to podcasts or when I'm doing my research trying to figure out what's the next best strategy. Every LinkedIn expert, just create a relationship and then you get your clients. Okay, cool.
But practical, how do I practically do it?
Okay, I need some next steps. Like, I need something practical. And unfortunately, no one talks about it. So I'm going to talk about it. Okay?
Thank you so much.
So what I've found, and this works extremely well, right, for me, and I've also, just provided the strategy to a lot of people and it's worked well for them. So my connection strategy, or let me want to say my relationship building strategy, first starts off like this. So you obviously then create you first send the connection request, okay? Now, a lot of gurus will tell you first want to personalize your connection request, tell them, how you like, wow, they've done this and they've done that. Again, most of your prospects on LinkedIn, I'm assuming that the people that you're reaching out to are top level people, right? So if they're top level people, best believe that they're being reached out to every single day. A lot of people are reaching out to them. A lot of people are sending them cold messages. So guess what? They're going to do the same thing. They're going to personalize that connection request message. So I always say, don't do that. Just leave it blank. Okay. Big shout out to Helen Pritchard. She's a LinkedIn expert and I got that tip from her. So you just want to send a connection request. Be as curious as possible. They should, more than anything, just send that connection request. And then once you're done sending the connection request, or once they've accepted it, what I like to do, and it works every single time, right? Comment on their content. Okay. Comment on content that they're posting about. Because here's the thing, you're not just posting content for the sake of posting content. Well, except for some of us, because we're trying to automate it and we don't have time. But for most of them, it's really just about they're posting things that they care about, right? And they're investing their time to post the content, so they obviously care about that specific content. Comment on it. Don't just like it and be like, "Oh, great post." I don't know how many times I've seen that comment.
Or
great
just like
post.
a thumbs up. Or
like a thumbs up. Like, you haven't really showed that you've invested into them. So what I would do, whatever they post, right, whether it's a link to a specific article or whatever they're speaking about, I would comment and give, my 2 cents. Okay, if it's an article, that's perfect. I'll just skim through it, find, a couple of key points, and then I would respond. But when I respond, I don't just say, "Hey, great post." I'll actually comment and then I'll ask a question after that. And the reason why I'm asking the question after that is to evoke a response, to get you to respond. So now that you're responding to me, that tells me one thing: you're investing your time into me. So the whole purpose of LinkedIn is to get your prospects to invest their time into you subconsciously, because now he's responding to your comment that you've made. He doesn't realize he's slowly investing his time into you. So then after he's done responding to my comment, then what I'll do is the next day I'll respond to another content that he posted. So just to quickly backtrack here, I only speak to prospects that are very active on LinkedIn. If you're not active on LinkedIn, the strategy is not going to work. So you obviously want to target people that are active on LinkedIn. How can you see if they're active on LinkedIn? You want to look how many times a day are they posting, right? If they're posting 5 times a week, then perfect. That's someone that you can work with, because then you know for a fact that they're posting content every day and you can respond to that content. Okay, so once then I comment on their posts, I'll do that for about 5 days straight. I want you to open up your LinkedIn and see in your notifications, Wandile has commented, Wandile has commented, Wandile has commented, right? What I'm doing here is that I'm subconsciously planting my name into your head. And at the same time, you're also responding to my comments. So you're investing your time. So what always happens, this always happens every single time, right? After the 3rd or the 4th day, they'll be like, who's this person? He's always commenting on my stuff. This is interesting. This is someone who's just taking the time to comment, and I like his comments. We're having great conversations. So guess what? They're going to view your profile. LinkedIn will then send you a notification. X and X has just viewed your profile. That's when I know for a fact that, okay, now you invested in me, because the fact that you went and you looked at my profile, now I know for a fact that, okay, now it's time for the DMs. Now it's time for me to slide in the DMs, because essentially what they're doing is that they're subconsciously giving you the green light to direct message.
You've just flirted with them a little bit. And now you're going to offer them a drink.
You see, now I'm going to offer them a drink. So then, but even when I do slide in the DMs, I don't pitch. Remember, I'm creating that relationship.
It's just a drink, not a relationship.
100%. So what I then do on my first message, I just compliment them. People love to be complimented. So I'll comment them. I'll send them a message. Hey, listen, man, I'm really enjoying your posts. I just can't help but comment, on most of the posts that you're doing. And I'll just add in a little bit of, 2 cents there, here and there. And what do they do? Oh, wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I've noticed X and X and X. And then I won't respond after that. I'll just wait for like a day or two. And then on the next day, I'll ask them for advice. So I got this tip from Robert Greene. I'm reading a book called Laws of Human Nature. Amazing book.
I haven't read the book. There's this app called Blinkist. And it's one of the I've done like 200 books in a lot. I love Blinkist because it just summarizes the book for you. Like it just saves you all the time and effort. Like you forget 70 or 80% of a book, you forget. So all that Blinkist does is it helps you retain that 20% of the information that's really, really important. And I got it on there. It's a very, very, the nuggets that I've read, I retained, and it was really interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things that he really highlights on is how to actually just decrease most people's walls of resistance, how to actually build trust. And he says one of the best ways to build trust with someone is by asking them for advice, right? And you more or less want to, target it as if you are asking someone who's at a higher position than you for advice. So they more or less seem like a mentor, just someone who, feels like, wow, okay, he actually asked me for advice. Wow, okay, you're pedestalizing me, so I'm going to give you the advice. I'm more or less obligated to give you that advice. So I would then ask them for advice, just cliche advice, like, okay, how would you deal with a prospect that's got money, but just is a difficult client, right? Something very similar to what I know.
And most of the time they will reply because the ego has been like,
yes.
What is the word? Not when a streel in Afrikaans. What is the English word? The ego has been like, what is it? Huh? Boosted? No, it's not the English. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway,
you're essentially stroking the ego, basically.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay,
we're gonna cut that out because I don't want that. But you're basically stroking the ego. 100%.
100%. So when I ask them for the advice, they always respond, and it's literally long. Right? They'll give me a long message, and I love that because again, the longer the message, the longer they're investing in you. So now they're gone. Now you know for a fact that this person is mine now. So once they're done sending me that long message, I'll just respond and say, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. And then I always say this, and this works all the time. I don't know when last I had such a genuine conversation on LinkedIn. Boom! Already. And they're like, yeah, I'm always getting pitched here and there. No one really cares. And 1, 2, 3. And that is when you know now it's time for you to pitch. So typically what I do is the next
Everybody
day.
always pitch, by the way.
So what I typically like to do is I'll just agree or whatever they're saying. I'll just like, yeah, that's cool, that's great. Then the next day I wouldn't necessarily send a message, but I'll wait for one more day. And the next day I'll be like, hey, I actually noticed your content or your article on 123 or your website, obviously the problem that they have. And I'm like, I think I might have a solution to that. Can I ask for your permission if maybe I could just record just a 2-minute video on how you can actually solve that issue? And then again, the reason why I'm asking for permission is because I don't want to be too direct.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also just want to make sure that they can trust me.
Yeah.
Right? Because most people are like, hey, let's jump on a call. Here's my calendar. Click on my link.
Yeah.
So I always ask for permission. And again, I always ask for permission to send them a 2-3 minute video. So what I do is I use Loom to record the video. And essentially, I'll just create like a 2-3 minute video where I'm actually just guiding them through their problem and how I can help it, how I can actually solve it for them. And then for like maybe 10-20 seconds, I'll just show them a little bit of testimonials of people that I've actually worked with. And then my call to action in the video is like, hey, if you'd like to have a conversation about this, let me know, and then we can move things forward.
What I love about asking permission is that the chances of them actually now looking at that video is just increased. You've just increased your chance by like 50-80% just purely because someone goes, yeah, you can send it to me. I've given you permission. And now they send it. They almost like feel like a little bit obliged now to actually look at it because they've now told you that you should go and do it.
Yes.
And now they're going to feel bad if they just don't pay attention to it. So I love that on a psychological level. That's really cool.
Yeah. So once they've viewed the Loom, then typically what happens is like, wow, okay, how much? Or, when can we get started? Right? And that's what you want. You want them to reach out to me like, wow, this is great. Okay, when can I start? Or let's have a conversation.
And again, you didn't pitch anything really. You just actually added value because you were like, hey, let me send you a 2 to 3 minute video explaining to you how you can solve the problem. You didn't say, let me send you a 2 to 3 minute video explaining to you how I can help or how I can, how I can offer you a service that's going to help you essentially. You actually said, let me give you a 2 to 3 minute video that's going to just kind of like explain to you how you can solve that problem. And again, I'm sure you ending it like, if you want to, talk about it, let me know. But it's not like this is our offering and this is our services and this is our costs. Like it's a lot more passive than that, right?
100%. Yes. So one thing I really like about that is that because your approach was so genuine, for those that might not be interested, maybe because they already have someone who's already doing that service for them, or they just generally fine, they don't need any help. Typically what happens is that they'll be like to me, okay, well, I love what you're doing. However, I do have X and X helping me with that. However, I do know someone who does need your services. Can I create that introduction? Can I connect you guys? And that is perfect, right? And the reason why they're referring you is because they trust you and they like you already. Okay, so they will do the best that they can to help you, right? Because you were so genuine with your approach. It's sort of like, okay, wow, you've been nothing but great. You've been commenting on my content. You've been responding to me. We've had such great conversation. The least I can do, right? The law of reciprocity. Yeah. The least I can do is give you this referral. And that's what they always do all the time. It works.
That's so cool, man.
Oh. But that took time to figure it out.
Yeah.
It took a lot of time to figure it out, but it works all the time. Every single time.
Thank you for sharing that with us, man. That's really awesome. All right. So we've talked about email. We've talked about LinkedIn. I think the next platform is a platform that a lot of people don't think you can actually generate B2B business on. Facebook is well known for consumer advertising. And I mean, that's funny enough where I built my first consumer business. When you were still able to run page-like ads for like 10 cents a like in South Africa. The only ad type that you could run in 2011 was page-like ads. And I had to choose whether I want to spend 1,000 Rand on whey protein or 1,000 Rand on Facebook ads.
Tough choice.
It was a tough choice, dude. Like, trust me, as a personal trainer, it was a very tough choice. And for some reason, I spent it on Facebook ads, and page-like ads was literally the only thing I can do. It pulled in your profile picture. It's like you couldn't even change the image. So this was literally way back when Facebook just launched. So it literally just pulls in your Facebook profile image. And then the only thing that you could change was the blurb at the top. So you can say, subscribe to my page for health and fitness tips. That's basically what I did. For free health and fitness tips and advice. And I got like 10 cents a like. And that's how I built my first consumer platform. And when it came to building V8 Media, email and LinkedIn played a huge role. But today we're predominantly spending most of our money on Facebook, to be honest with you. And obviously we're still generating leads through email and LinkedIn, but from an advertising perspective, we're using Facebook quite a lot. But this is not an episode on about our Facebook ad strategy. What I want to touch on is that Facebook does offer a lot of value for B2B businesses. And I think I'm very excited for you to maybe just explain on how to leverage that as a channel when it comes to outreach at the end of the day, like you've done for LinkedIn. So starting with Facebook, I mean, where would you even start? Like, I think people wouldn't necessarily know, because I think most people would just post something on their wall and then they would expect all their friends and family to sign up for their services.
Yeah.
And that's your friends and family. They don't care about your business. They care about you and your health and whether you're okay. At the same time, they're not going to necessarily pay you to grow your business, even though they would want you to succeed, right? So
100%.
how would you go ahead with Facebook in terms of an outreach strategy?
So when I was testing it out, I just decided that I'm going to create a new Facebook account. And the reason why was because I was like, well, most of my friends list are just like friends and family, etc. So now I'm going to start posting content on something that's completely inverted to what they used to. So it's like, this is going to be weird. This is going to be awkward. I was like, you know what? I actually just want to have 2,000, 3,000 or 4,000 friends who are literally just my target market. So I was like, that's much better. So look, there's two ways on how you can do it. If you don't want to create a new Facebook account, you can actually just have your main one. And I got this from Sam Ovens. And essentially what he did is that he would then add most of his prospects on Facebook. And then and obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you probably know this, but essentially what he does is that he adds them as a friend, and then he can actually categorize them. So he can actually create a category, and he can just put in clients or prospects, right? And then whenever they accept, he can put them into that specific category. So whenever he creates content, he can then create content specifically to that category, right? And it's not going to necessarily show or reflect onto the friends and family, etc. Okay, so that's what he did. But I was like, I just want to create a clean Facebook account. So I created a clean Facebook account, and it was just great to see that, okay, the more friends that I'm getting, the people that I'm adding in, the content as well. Because the nice thing is that now I actually started, the algorithm was now aggregating content according to what I was actually looking at specifically, and also just most of my friends, which were basically real estate agents, right, my target market. So how I actually found these real estate agents, and I think this is very important, or really just my prospects, is groups. Facebook groups, man, are literally just a whirlwind of information, because again, as I said earlier on, you really just want to find out where your market is hanging out online. Okay, so there's multiple groups, right, of most of your prospects hanging out online. It could be architects, it could be engineers, it could be designers, whoever you're reaching out for, whoever you're looking out for, go onto Facebook groups and then just type in, your market, and you'll find them. There's so many of them. And again, look, you're not limited to South Africa. If you're trying to do services in America and the UK and Australia, they're all there. And what I would just advise is that what you want to do, you want to obviously join the group, and there's a member section, right? There's a tab on the left. Click on the member section, and then you can obviously see all the people that have actually joined the group. So I actually discovered this 2 weeks ago. I don't know if this is something new, or maybe because I'm a dinosaur and I'm only just focusing right now on emails. But there's actually an extension that can actually add all those people in those groups automatically. So you don't necessarily have to manually do it. So you can actually just specify, hey, I want to add 50 people today. And it does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually don't know much about if that extension still exists. I know that it existed about 2 years ago, and you can actually add all your existing friends and family to a group and all that kind of stuff without having to individually invite them. But the problem with that is that you're not adding contextual people to the group. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand. This is what makes Facebook so powerful, but also this is why it's not considered a B2B tool. It's because you can reach a lot of people at no cost. But the problem is you're not necessarily reaching the people you want to reach. And usually it's because of the way that you use Facebook. It's not Facebook's fault. It's your fault, because you're like, I want to add all my friends and family to my group. And then every single person that I can think of is going to be added to this group. And when you post something, the people that you've added are not interested in what you have to say.
Yeah.
You get upset because you're like, Facebook doesn't work, because I've told all these people about my business and they don't care. It's purely because you've added people to the group who doesn't care about the topic that you're obviously talking about. The thing that you're passionate about, they're not passionate about. The problem you're solving is not their problem. Yes. And I think essentially that's how people misuse or misinterpret Facebook at the end of the day.
That's true. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, there is two ways that work that I've tried. But I just realized Facebook is, it's a little arduous because there's just multiple rules in place. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you are actually going to go the manual route, just like adding people from the different groups to be your friend on Facebook, some of them are very particular about who they're Facebook friends with. So they might look at you like, who's this person? I don't know this person. Why does he want to, add me as a friend, right? So some of them might not accept. Some do. That's great. But even that, the process, it's long. I don't know. For some reason, people don't look at their friend requests, or they probably have, just they're inundated with so many friend requests.
Well, that's exactly it. Like I've got like 100, and it's not because I'm popular. I think most people are sitting with like 50, probably to 100 requests in their inbox today. Just really because you don't look at your the notifications are so overwhelming.
Yes.
And a friend request is obviously part of those notifications, and it's just too much. Like I don't want any more friends. Just leave me alone. And I think that's what it comes down to, right?
100%. Yeah. But I mean, look, hey, if you're lucky and they accept you, then the minute they accept you, then you can go in directly with the inbox. Or what you can do, you can use a LinkedIn strategy that I just spoke about, and then apply that with Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It will still work, right? And then the next strategy, this is what I use typically most of the time, is I would actually find business pages, right? So what I would do is I'd find the business page, and I guess also because I'm lucky, because when I work with real estate agents, they are the ones that actually run in the business page. It's not some receptionist or an employee, etc. So then what I would do is I would actually inbox them, right, on their actual business, on their business page. And then now you see, here's the thing, right? Now there I have to be direct. There I can't. There's no long-term game. There's no relationship there. It's just going in straight for the kill. However, I do use my two-step method, which is the email, just asking a question, evoking that response. And then once they respond, then I pitch. Now, that's nice because sometimes I do get a quick response. However, I can only send 10 messages per hour. Anything more than 10 messages, I get blocked. So I'm really restricted towards that. So I can only send 10 messages per hour. That does take time, and I've got a lot of things to do. Okay?
Yeah.
So ideally, if someone is looking to do something on Facebook, I would suggest that maybe hire a virtual assistant if you've got money, to then send 10 messages to these business pages every single hour. However, if you don't have money, then I would suggest that just do it manually yourself. But it does work, because at the end of the day, remember, when it comes to your offer, when it comes to your services that you're providing, whichever channel that you're using, it's going to work, right? It's not because the strategy that I use on cold email and message is not going to work on Facebook. It works everywhere. It's just a matter of understanding the rules and
the psychology of the platform.
Yes, and the psychology of the platform as well.
Yeah, I think essentially one thing I can add there is that, by joining a group where your target audience is hanging out, you mentioned earlier, I asked, where do you start when it comes to outreach? And you start wherever your audience is hanging out. And I can guarantee you now, and you've mentioned it again, you've said, it's not B2B marketing, it's not B2C marketing, it's actually B2P marketing, and it's business to person.
Yeah.
Because that person who you're targeting has a LinkedIn account, but he also has a Facebook account. I can tell you now, the probability is higher that he's got a Facebook account, more so than a LinkedIn account. It's just finding that person on Facebook and breaking and kind of like bridging the gap between the psychological reason he's on Facebook and the reason you're using Facebook as a business tool. And that he's there to escape and forget about his life. You need to bridge that gap in some way, shape, or form. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, would be groups, because dentists, they kind of like conglomerate into this group of the dentist news bullet, the dentist news group, where all the latest dentist information gets shared. I don't know, medical stuff that gets shared there, whatever. Like for us, we've got a lead generation group, and then in that group we've got like 600 people, and it's growing with about 30 people every day, and it's people who want to generate leads for their businesses. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, obviously we can use that to generate leads for our own business, but that's not the point of that. But anybody can come in there. Obviously, we have a strict protocol on what is allowed to be posted and spammed, and we don't want to necessarily spam the community. But anybody can come in there and add value to the group by answering the questions that people ask. So, for example, someone would ask, I'm a dentist. How can I go ahead and generating leads? Or let's use another example. I made a post in our group the other day. Is like I said, what line of business you in? And a lot of people said, they just started an agency, social agency, or some people said that I'm a plumber. Some people said, I'm a graphic design. And all of those people in the group are saying, like, the person who just said, I'm a graphic design business, the next person can come and say, hey, that's awesome. I actually can help you with your business. Here's a couple of tips on what I've done, for this person and that person. Here's what I've seen well. Like, you can actually start. Someone just expressed to themselves that they're interested in a conversation of expressing what line of business they're in.
Yes.
So you can jump onto that conversation and be like, yo, what are you guys doing to generate business for that business? Or how's it going? Like, how are you guys coping with this pandemic that's been happening? How's it affected you? You can really start a meaningful conversation there. You don't have to go straight in for a sell, but like you said, like bridging that gap and really understanding the psychological reason that people are there. And the one thing I've also seen with Facebook groups is that you can reach out to the admin. So if you have a solution for the people in the group. So if you're offering a specific service and you have a solution for, a particular pain point that they might have, you can reach out to the admin and be like, hey, listen, I have a specific offer that I would like to present. And it is, I'll give one lucky winner. If you run a competition, I'll give one lucky winner a free month worth of, digital marketing services or this service or email service or whatever you're doing. I'll do a free consultation. Life coaching, a free dentist appointment, a checkup, whatever. Like, you can do something with it, right? And it's all about reaching out to the admin, understanding who's got power and authority, reaching out to them, and then trying to add value to the group. And you can do a competition with an admin and say, look, we're doing a competition. Let's offer something. All you have to do is you have to give away a bit of your time to help that individual who wins. Or it's a matter of jumping onto, like I said, now I saw there's another group called Sales and Outreach Family, and like a lot of people are asking questions there. A lot of people are actually adding value to each other. And again, it just draws attention to your profile. So the moment you've helped someone and you've given them advice, like you said on LinkedIn, that person's going to be like, yo, but who's this person? Let me just check out his profile. And that's where your website's mentioned, your business is mentioned. And you never know when someone just goes, let me actually just add this guy as a friend. Or let me actually just send him a private DM and find out what he's actually talking about, or find out a little bit more about this specific topic. So Facebook is definitely powerful if you use it right. Definitely.
100%. And just to add on to that, I think, once you provide value into the group, I think also just speaking on the perspective of, obviously this is an outreach podcast, but I mean, look, the best way to get more inbound leads is by providing value to groups. So as you said earlier on, just speaking to the admin, maybe even do like a live webinar, on the actual group, providing value to the prospective clients with the services that you're providing. And I think also what's important as well is when you're reaching out to prospects on social media, it's social media. So they're gonna check you out on social media. So you obviously want to make sure that you have optimized your profile. So, you have all the information, right? So you obviously want to, again, engage in the conversation that's happening in their mind once they're actually on your profile. So obviously, like, who's this? So you always want to make sure that you speak about who you are. Okay, what services do you provide? Speak about the services you provide. Okay, why should I listen to you? Show some credibility, show some testimonials. I'm not sure if I should do this. Maybe have a few posts where you're speaking about, okay, this is what I can give off for free, and then add in some scarcity, strategies, etc. But the purpose here is that you really just want to make sure that you optimize your profile, right? When you are on social media and you're reaching out on social media, so that even if you reach out to them and they don't respond, best believe they are going to check out your profile. They want to see who is this person and why should I listen to them. And if they like what they see on your profile, then best believe they will respond, right? So that's one of the things. That's one of the vast differences between email and social media, is that social media, they can literally check you out. They can spy on you, right? Email, not necessarily. However, I had, it's so crazy. When was that? I think it was sometime last week. I always do the best I can not to give off as much information as possible. But some of these people, right, these real estate agents will literally take a screenshot of like a Facebook or LinkedIn, right? All my names, right? Because obviously my name is quite common. So all these Wandiles, and they'll take like a long screenshot of like, which one of these guys are you? Literally. Because they don't know who I am. And they're like, this offer is so amazing, but I don't know who you are. Can I trust you? Who are you? So they'll literally take screenshots and like, which one of these guys are you? And then that's when I know the fact that they've invested time to go and find me and they couldn't find me, and the fact that they took a screenshot just trying to figure out who I am, that's when I know my emails work very well. So it's just, again, optimizing your profile if you're on social media, and email, just hide your identity as much as you can just to get them to agree to get on a call with you. Once that happens, then you can show them as much as you can. When you're on a demo with them, literally shower them with testimonials, who you are, what you guys have done. The purpose of cold email, really more than anything, is just to get them right on a demo, right?
Yeah.
Get them, just have a conversation, have a phone call, because it's very difficult to try and pitch someone on email. They all have all these preconceived ideas about, this could be spam, or your marketing, I don't know if I want to work with you. But when you have a conversation with them, it's so much easier, because they'll be like, I'm not sure if I can trust you. Oh, why is that? Now they have to respond. On email, they can say, I don't know if I want to work with you, or they don't respond, right? So I guess that's one of the beauties with cold email is that the minute you have them on the phone, it's a heck of a lot harder for them to let you go if you know what you're doing, right? And you understand their objections. So yeah, that's really just the vast differences between both platforms, and they work very well. I mean, you can basically use both and see what works to your advantage.
No, I love it, man. And thank you again for the knowledge that you've dropped there in terms of Facebook. Moving on to the last platform before we round off the show for today, Instagram. Let's talk a little bit about Instagram before we close off. In terms of Instagram, it's obviously growing rapidly in South Africa. Everywhere else around the world, obviously, it's quite popular. But in South Africa specifically, the usage has shot through the roof over the last 2 years. And from my side, I never thought it would actually be a great business tool. Like, I mean, I thought that's just where people go to post pictures and videos, but it's much more than that. It's actually crazy. Like, we generate higher quality leads on Instagram than we're actually generating on Facebook. Funny enough, organically, from an organic perspective.
Okay.
It's so weird. I didn't actually think that Instagram would have high quality leads. I would just assume that's where young people go in order to post about how awesome their lives are. That's basically what I thought Instagram was. And then when I started using it aggressively about 3 years ago, I really started understanding its power. And I post all our business stuff on there. Like, you'll go and you'll see, anybody can go to my profile now. Shameless plug alert. Go check out my profile, but you'll find out that I put all our show stuff there because I'm using LinkedIn as a business generating platform for us. I don't post any personal stuff. Every now and then I'll have like a personal picture of my wife or maybe my kid, or just to create a little bit of an emotional sentiment and just also show people that I'm real. And again, I just want to show people that like I'm just like everybody else. Like, and then we obviously do business on LinkedIn, on Instagram, but I also have a family and also just a normal individual. But on top of that, like, great platform for generating business. And I think essentially if you can touch on maybe some of the outreach strategies on there, that'll be great for ending off the podcast for us.
100%, man. Yeah, Instagram, I definitely share the same sentiments with you, man. I think, I don't know, to be honest, I just love their user interface. You know, it's so seamless. It's so smooth. It's easy, you just go onto Instagram, then there's the stories. You can view the stories and there's images. Everything just works incongruent with one another.
Facebook's very cluttered. Like, there's almost, like, I mean, okay, it's massive. It's a complete giant in terms of capabilities, but like Instagram is just plain and simple. Like, it's so easy to use. Yeah,
very easy to use. So with Instagram, this is a strategy I started implementing this year. And again, you want to find out where your market is hanging out. So because I work with real estate agents, most real estate agents are literally on every social media platform, right? So I found some, hidden gems in Instagram. And how I did find it was, I realized that they were actually a couple of meme pages for real estate agents, really just displaying the real estate agent's pain points, when a buyer says this and then the real estate agent does that, and people just comment and laugh about it. And I found a couple of pages where they literally have over, 500,000, 600,000 followers. Now, what does that mean for me? That's 500,000, 600,000 real estate agents. And I'm like, yes, this is perfect. So it's perfect because what happens is that those pages really have high engagement. Like, literally one post will have over 7,000 comments. And best believe it's real estate agents commenting on that certain scenario that that meme page posted. And a lot of them also tag other real estate agents. So typically what I would do, the nice thing about Instagram is I can follow as many people, and it's not as strict as Facebook. So I would literally follow all the people that would comment on the latest post. Okay, I'd literally follow all of them. And then what I would do, this is my business page, by the way. It's not my personal profile. This is my business page, by the way. I'll let you follow each and every single one of them, okay? And then what I would then do is I would send them a direct message. Okay. And I'll be like, hey, I actually noticed that you follow X and X page. Wow, man. Like content is really great, right? Or just posting or whatever it is, just to share that, just that familiarity that I actually followed you, I found you on that page.
Yeah.
And hey, this is me, right? So most of them would respond like, yeah, that post is so funny, right? No. Oh, I love that page, etc., etc. Then after that, typically what happens is that they view my profile.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, I don't know if they actually view it, but what I actually see is that they'll view my profile and they'll like my pictures, or I actually see through my stories that they actually viewed my stories. So that's when I know, okay, they actually viewed my profile. Most of them actually follow back, right? And they'll follow me. And then that's just a great way for me then to start creating content, because now I've got all these people that are actually viewing my stories. And I realize that a lot of them view stories. So I have to make sure I'm consistent with the stories. A lot of them actually view my stories. And then that's when I would actually start reaching out to them via message. Like, hey, I actually noticed that you watch a lot of my stories. You know, can I send you something, etc., etc. I actually pitch them.
Yeah.
And then, yes, some will be like, yes. Some will be like, it's just browsing. I'm not 100% sure. So that's essentially what I do on Instagram. I'll just find the groups where they're hanging out at. I'll follow them. And then once I follow them, I'll just send them a direct message, just having a quick conversation there. And then I'll just make sure that my content, my profile is optimized, one, to show my services, testimonials, etc. that I'm providing.
Bio link.
Yeah, everything. And then after that, I will then reach out to them afterwards. Once I've actually seen that they're actually checking out my stuff. The ones that check out my stuff, I'll reach out to. I've tried just mass sending direct messages. It works. Sometimes it doesn't work. So typically what I just focus on Instagram is really just first getting the inbound messages sometimes. And then what I'll also just typically do is I'll just reach out to them after that and see which strategy specifically works. But Instagram is perfect, man. It just works exceptionally well if you have the right market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've taken a very similar approach. The following on my end has died down because I haven't actually been very active in trying to gain new followers. Like I think from my side, it is an effort. It's a continuous thing that you have to do. Like and Instagram is not as easy to get your followers anymore as it was 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago you could post something and use the right hashtags and really get proper followers.
Yeah.
Now you actually have to work for them. And one thing I've done in the past was, when I knew I started my agency, was I went onto Entrepreneurs Mag and I went on to I looked at the content that they're posting. I went on to, there's a SME.Africa. There's so many places where business owners are basically hanging out. They're basically following these profiles that are offering business advice. I would, find some mentors in the business space and see who's following them. And I would literally, like you just said now, click followers, because you can literally see every single follower.
Yeah.
Follow them, look at their profiles, and like you've said, like a lot of them actually end up following you back, and that's exactly what happened. And all I do now is I just post content. Like the followers are growing organically, but ideally now I've built up this audience, and every now and then someone would be like, "Hey, I've been following you for a while. Love your content. I really think you guys can assist us with our business. Here's where we are. Here's what we need. Can you help?" And I'm like, "Look, now you've come to me, so I'm literally sitting, with my hands folded, and I'm not necessarily the one begging for the business, which creates completely different psychological dynamic, which is something that we can do a whole show on probably. But ideally, I'm like, look, let's see what we can do. The fact that you've been following my content, the fact that you feel like you need to reach out to me to see if I can help, that's flattering, and let's see how we can help. But now there's more of a personal approach. It's not like, who the hell are you and what can you do for my business? They've actually decided to follow me. But it all started with me a year ago, 2 years ago already, where you've actually gained that person as a follower, and you've built up that audience over time. And hashtags is great. I think people underestimate that you can now follow hashtags, and actually you can literally say hashtag small business tips and look at every single post and see who's commented and liked on those posts and who's following that hashtag, and you can just go and follow those people and see if they follow you back, or maybe just, like you said, strike up a conversation with someone who's enjoyed a meme or whatever it is. But anyway, no, dude, I must say, I think out of all the shows we've done, this is episode number 15. I think this is one of the shows that will definitely be in my top 5. So even if we had 100 shows, I'm pretty sure this will be in the top 5, purely because of the fact that there was so much value dropped. And it's valuable information, not just from a perspective of marketing, but from a perspective of like, you can actually use these practical tips that are technically free to start generating business and generating income for your organization, which is really, really exciting. And I think from my side, I want to thank you for coming through.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for dropping the golden nuggets. And if someone had to follow you around, or someone had to follow you on social media, that's what I meant. Obviously, when you follow someone around these days, it's technically on social. If they had to find you somewhere, I mean, is there somewhere that they can find you? LinkedIn, Instagram, what's the story?
Yes, so they can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. Wandile Mr. W. Facebook, Wandile Mr. W. Although my Facebook profile is just specifically focused on real estate agents. However, my LinkedIn, I'm most active there. Wandile Mr. W.
Awesome, man. Thank you. And a website, anything like that, where people can go check out a little bit more about your services or anything like that?
So again, that's essentially where I provide most of my tips and my strategies on LinkedIn. I just realized that, and again, this was obviously a conversation or another podcast for another day. But for me, I just found that I didn't find a lot of value in having a website. I just feel that, you want to engage with your prospects as soon as they've found you.
Yeah.
So I just find that having a LinkedIn profile that's very active works extremely well. I also have a YouTube channel which is only specifically for real estate agents.
Yeah.
Again, I've got around 70 videos, over 300 hours of content.
Nice.
But that I use specifically again for credibility. So that really helps me bypass do you have a website? I'm like, no, I don't find any value in it. However, here's all my content on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And they find more value in that. So again, look, it might not work for anyone else, but it works for me not having a website. Man. Yeah.
Super interesting conversation that one can have though. From my side, thank you so much for coming through, man. And
thanks so much.
We'll definitely have you. And I want to talk about, we've basically mentioned all the different outreach strategies, but there's so much more that we can do in terms of marketing as a whole and digital marketing. You're quite the guru in some channels, so I'd love to have you on board maybe sometime again, if the shoe fits. From my side, thanks again for coming through, and all the best.
Thank you so much, man. It's really been a pleasure.
All the best, you guys. Have a great week.